Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Valorant weekly news roundup brought to you by SkillCapped. My name's Modix, and in today's video, we will be diving into this week's Ask Valorant news article. Now, normally, whenever we do this, we cover questions that are normally answered by Morello in his live stream. But today, we're going to be talking about two very controversial topics in the Valorant community. These are operator meta and sound issues. But before we get into that, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe with notifications on, because every Sunday we release a weekly news roundup covering all the Valorant news that happened in the past week. So if you want to stay in the loop, then be sure to be subscribed with notifications on. Now, starting us off today, we'll be hearing from Nick Wu talking about the operator meta in Valorant. Here's the question that the community asked. What are your thoughts on the opinion that the operator is too OP? And now here's what Nick Wu had to say. We think the operator isn't too OP, but do believe that the feeling sometimes comes from a lack of personal agency against the weapon for agents that don't have tools to break line of sight for themselves, coupled with an overwhelming amount of team coordination to effectively counter an operator. We're looking into a lot of avenues to help smooth out the experience, but we do believe the operator should be powerful and should encourage a team to thoughtfully enter a space where it might be in play. To give an antidote, we've tried iterations of the game where the operator's strengths weren't as sharp as they are today, especially in holding defensive angles. We discovered that without moments where a team was forced to sit down and plan how to play against or around a good operator, a lot of gameplay became about who could rush faster. The operator, like all weapons, maps, agents, etc., is a part of our continuous holistic review of the state of the game, and will make changes in the future if we feel it's needed. No changes now doesn't mean no changes ever. So basically, what we can take away from this is that the operator itself will probably not be getting any changes, but instead agent's utility might get buffed to help even out the playing field going against oppers. I've seen a lot of players express their opinions on the same question, and it seems as though 50% think that the operator is indeed overpowered, and the other 50% think that it's balanced. So now I'm asking you, what do you think about the operator? Is it overpowered or is it balanced? Be sure to let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Well, that's all the new info we have regarding this topic, so now let's talk about our next controversial subject, sound. Here's the question that the community asked. Sometimes it feels like sound is off in the game, like footsteps are much closer than they really are, or I hear them in the wrong direction. Am I going crazy? Does Valorant do something different with sound? Now, I know that we all have been in the situation where we think we hear something in one place and then it's actually 180 degrees in the opposite direction. This can end up causing a lot of confusion, so here's what the devs had to say addressing the problem. The footstep radius is set up to give players who hear enemy footsteps time to use an ability and re-equip a weapon before they're in danger. I've also heard feedback around the fact that people have a hard time telling how far away a footstep is, which there is truth to. We optimize for making sure footsteps are heard as opposed to optimizing for portraying distance. What this looks like is an attenuation curve that is somewhat flat versus one that drops off a lot over distance. There are a couple reasons we do this. One is that under chaotic conditions where abilities are being used, you're probably hearing a lot of VoIP, otherwise known as comms, from your team. It is essential that you don't miss a footstep. Based on internal playtests, not hearing a footstep and getting killed by someone you knew had to run to get to you is very tilting. This feels especially bad for players who have internalized rotation times on the map and have good communication and callouts on their team. We also know our game will be played in a variety of contexts. NA players may be used to playing in a quiet room and hearing every detail, but players in China or Korea may be playing in a loud PC bank, where a footstep that was quiet but gave more information on distance would be lost. I have never played professionally, but I imagine clarity would also be appreciated for esports players who may be in a noisy stadium, hopefully someday. Another reason for this is that we don't want to give players the incentive to turn their volume up to painful levels because they have to listen for faint audio cues to be competitive, or to add external DSP to compress their audio, which happens for some other FPS games. If the game designers want you to have the information, we want you to clearly have the information. While there's a drawback from having the attenuation curve flatter, I think the advantages are more important. As far as panning direction goes, we have heard reports of this both internally and on live. When our design playtest has investigated this in the past using videos of multiple viewpoints, the panning has turned out to be correct. We currently mix the game in stereo, meaning there is no difference between a sound 45 degrees to your left in front of you and a sound 45 degrees to your left in back of you. Some people expect to be able to hear this difference, but that is not currently possible. Also, engaging the 7.1 mode on various headphones does not help. There's no way for the headphones to decode our stereo sound into 7.1 and may even make spatialization much worse. So overall, a very interesting response by Peter Zinda, the audio director for Riot. Personally, I really wish that they add some sort of feature to allow players to tell exactly where sounds are coming from, but this could take a while to create, so we'll just have to play it with what we have right now. And that's all that this week's Ask Valorant news article covered, but before we wrap up this week's news roundup, we need to talk esports. So it has now been about 3 months since Valorant officially released, and many esports organizations are finally locking down their rosters. One of the first teams to do this was T1 back before the game even officially released. The team was made up of Brax, AZK, Crashies, Food, and lastly Skadoodle. But on August 24th, this all changed. This was when Skadoodle officially stepped down from the main roster. Here's the tweet that Skadoodle posted giving his fans the announcement. An update to my fans and fans of T1. As you may have noticed, I haven't been playing with the squad in competitions and again won't be competing in this weekend's event. I've been grinding to expand my agent pool and overall impact with the up and will be back with T1 when the time is right. But in the meantime, I'm going to be practicing with other teams to stay sharp. I'll be back soon and better than ever. If you didn't know, Skadoodle always had the role of Sage in the T1 team comp, but when the meta of Valorant shifted away from Sage and towards the Jet Operator combo, the other T1 players felt as though Skadoodle was a weak link, and so they replaced him with their coach Fraud. It will be very interesting to see how all this plays out and if Skadoodle will remain with T1, and we promise to keep you updated whenever we get more information on the situation. Well, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this week's Valorant Weekly News Roundup. And if you enjoyed today's video, then be sure to like the video and subscribe with notifications on, because every Sunday we release a weekly news video talking about all the news happening in the Valorant community. Thanks so much for watching all the way through this video. I'm montage signing off, and I will see you all in the next one.